Hey guys, what's the best way to add storage space to your van? Today, I'll show you how I did it. Welcome back to Giant Travels by Van. Don't forget to enter in the comments if you think you know where the inspiration for today's intro came from. Today, I'll reveal how I used some sound ideas to build my overhead storage for the van. Let's get right into it. To begin building my overhead storage, I started by measuring and cutting 2 pieces of 1/2-inch plywood that would attach to the pillars in the vehicle beside each seat and which are just forward of the side doors. These would serve 2 purposes. First, they would support the cross piece that would close in that compartment. And secondly, later when I add blackout curtains, they would give me something that I could add Velcro to and attach the curtains to completely black out the back area. I cut one of these out, got it the way I wanted, and then used that as a pattern to create the mirror for the other side, and cut and sanded, rounded all the corners. I needed an area where I could mount a support bracket at the front of the vehicle. The plastic that you see to the right here is the existing overhead storage bin that they provide in the RAM ProMaster City. And I found that when you take the handles down that give you support to exit the vehicle, there's enough metal forward of that front handle attachment, which is very solidly mounted in there, that I could attach a riv nut that I could use to add a bracket to that would support the compartment. The brackets that I used were kind of the medium size package that Home Depot offers, and all I needed to do was put a little bend in the end here, and I was getting a good vertical support then that was at the appropriate height to mount some 3/4 inch plywood cut out to fit the shape of the existing overhead storage. To match the curvature of the existing overhead storage bin, I placed a section of the white polywall panel that I'd used earlier, this thin plastic that's very flexible, and cut it, fit it in, mounted it to the L brackets and let it float inside and over the top of the storage area so that I could trace that curvature. When I pulled it out, I decided to fold it in half so that at least I'd have symmetry between the 2 sides if there were any imperfections. So I folded it in half, put a bolt back through the mounting points, and then trimmed it out on that line. When I opened it up, I placed it on the plywood and transferred the line to the plywood and cut this out with my jigsaw. Mounting it to the L brackets that would support it, I was pretty happy with how the shape came out to match the existing overhead storage. After I'd mounted the vertical pieces at each door pillar that I mentioned earlier, it was time to trace the pattern for the cross piece that would form the new entrance into this storage area. I used a piece of cardboard here to get the shape up at the ceiling, and a trick you can use here is you can see on the bottom left of the cardboard there's a little black mark there. That's a method to use that shows the cardboard didn't reach all the way to the rubber insulation, so I'm duplicating that gap width by marking that far from the edge of the cardboard. That way when I transfer the pattern, I'll use that width and go extend it out beyond the cardboard that far. It's just a little trick you can use that helps you capture patterns when the piece that you're transferring the pattern to isn't actually large enough in some area to capture the true shape. While I was planning the design for this, I came up with the realization that I could add some speakers to this area, and that would give me sound in the back of the van. So I wound up purchasing an inexpensive amplifier that had Bluetooth and a couple of Pioneer speakers from Best Buy. And here I did a bench test to make sure that everything, when wired up, was going to work appropriately before installing it. After some careful measuring to make sure the speakers would have clearance to penetrate back in for the magnets in the back of the speaker, I cut the holes in the overhead piece and did a test mounting here to make sure that everything fit. Having these 2 pieces mounted in the van allowed me to take measurements to close in the area, the space between them. And part of my plan was to have a section in the middle that would swing down, which would make it easier to reach in further, not being such a tight space, and make it easier to take and remove things from this area or store and organize things. So when I built the piece here, you can see that I've added each side piece but left a section in the middle that falls far enough away from the speakers that I could provide support for it, and then create a hinging panel that would lower down. You can see that I've cut an opening between the two speaker holes to allow access to the storage area here, and then these were painted and ready to install. After mounting the speakers and wiring, I installed both of these in the van and then was ready to do some angle bracket supports to join the two pieces together down inside here. I wound up placing an angle bracket on each side of the speaker, so it would give me 4 supports joining the platform to the back piece with the speakers for good support. To create the panel that would hinge down and allow greater access to the area, I started by trying to cut out a piece that would provide the support and latch to the cross piece where the speakers were mounted. So I was going to use these white latches to allow you to fasten and then open it and let it hinge down. So I needed to cut a piece that would be the back support that these latches would mount to. So I used some curves here from a 4-inch parts dish to try and get a shape that would allow me to attach both the latch but also try and maintain as much of the opening as possible so that you could just grab some things that were close to the back without needing to open the door. So here's the completed unit with the hinging door and the latches mounted in it. To attach this front piece with the latches to the panel that swings down, I measured and cut a couple of the steel angle brackets and drilled an extra hole that matched perfectly with the top outside hole from the latch. So you can see that there's a bolt there instead of a wood screw. That's going all the way through to the angle bracket that provides support to the panel. So it wound up being very sturdy, and you can just simply use 2 hands, swing each latch in, and hinge the door down. Here's some other views of the completed cabinet. I'd also decided to change my paint color as I got into the cabin area of the vehicle, and found some textured paint that had white, black, and tan mixed in it, which kind of tied together the elements on that side of the vehicle a little better than the pure white that I was using. So here's a view with the hinged section lowered down to help provide access in there to reach in further for storage and organization. It's easy to raise and latch or lower, and for now I'm just letting it sit on the headrest, but I may devise some support means that doesn't require that. Finally, over at my cabinets is where I mounted the small stereo amplifier Bluetooth unit that I'd purchased. I wound up deciding, rather than to build some kind of box to mount it in, I just flipped it over and mounted it upside down. The controls are simple enough to use, and since I'll be using it Bluetooth mostly from my phone or iPad, it just makes it easiest to just mount it here and route the wiring in. One thing I did do though for power was the back of the vehicle over on that side had a cigarette lighter outlet that's powered by the vehicle when it's running. So I opted to use that in the power scheme. So the switch here is actually a double pull, double throw, so that I could have the unit powered either from that power that's provided by the vehicle when it's running, or I can flip it the other way and the wiring will go into my battery and solar array so that I can power it from the RV side battery when the vehicle's not running. So unfortunately the switch here got a little messed up. I was using blue Loctite to lock it in place, and interestingly found that the blue Loctite would actually dissolve the paint that was on the switch. So you can't read the red on or off positions on the switch anymore. But I configured it to where when you flip the switch up, as if you're pointing it towards the ceiling, that'll be the solar powering the unit. And when you flip it down, as is shown here in the picture, then it'll be the vehicle powering the unit. So that again, I can use it both ways. And then here I'm just showing how the wiring ran into where my wiring and switch panel is going to be when I wire the solar power into the unit. Finally, here's a view from the back of the vehicle looking forward that shows the completed installation. You can see that on the vertical panels that I mounted on the door pillar on each side, that will help me when I'm going to close the area in with a blackout curtain. I'll have something to use Velcro on and attach the curtain to. Additionally, on the left side, you can see I've mounted a handle that again helps you enter or exit the vehicle. All of this is leveraging the M6 metric bolt holes that are provided for the bulkhead that the van can have installed in it when it's being used for commercial purposes to protect the driver in the front from whatever the van's carrying in the back. So I was trying to leverage those holes as much as possible, and those are some M6 metric bolts that attach into those holes. Finally, you can see in the overhead unit with the speakers, I've left 3/4 of an inch clearance to the ceiling, and my plan is to, when I close in the ceiling, slide the polyiso board that's 3/4 inch thick right over the top of that area so that there's some insulation that extends forward to the cross ribbing that's just a few inches forward of this speaker panel. All in all, I was very happy with how it came out. Everything is sturdy. I may get some rattling from those latches, and I've already got some ideas on how I can kind of knock that down. But the storage area is usable without lowering it, and kind of the plan is to organize the next day's clothes whenever you get in there and just set those right near the opening. So that way you've gotten whatever you need for that day, and then you can stage the next day's clothing right by the opening so that you don't have to hinge or reach or anything, and you have the clothing for your next adventure right there by the door. Okay, thanks for watching today. I hope this will inspire you to take even the simple task of building storage into your van and trying to personalize it and add something to it. Remember, everything in your van that can serve multiple purposes will make the results much better for you. For those wondering about the inspiration for today's intro, that comes from the Austin Evans Tech Channel, where he covers everything from gaming PCs to smartphones. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. In my next episode, I'll show how I've built my seating area and how it converts to a bed. See you soon. Welcome back to Giant Travels by Van. Don't forget, for those wondering about the inspiration for today's intro, that comes from the Austin Tech. Welcome back to Giant Travels by Van. Today I'll reveal something.